I have a special bonus for you guys because it is October and it's fall and Halloween month. I wanted to include a seasonal activity, so you can use this one with your individual students, but you can also use it with groups and class lessons too. So you can use it however you'd like in your counseling program. I've most commonly used it with individuals, but it's just a really fun way to review size of the problem, which is a self-regulation technique. So I have for you a print and digital version. This is the print version, and then I'll show you the boom cards version. So we want students to identify the size of their problem. Now, why that's important is so they can have an appropriate reaction size. We don't want a student to break a pencil, which would be considered a tiny problem, and then have a complete meltdown, right? So we're trying to help these students learn how to use their self-regulation skills, and part of that is identifying the size of their problems. So this is the instructions for the flipbook assembly. So this is a craft where they're going to assemble a flipbook. And so you can either hole punch these or staple them together at the stem, or you can use one of those metal rings or a ribbon to connect them. Use what supplies you have. But it's just a fun craft where the kids can flip through to review the size of their problems. So you have the different size pumpkins here. I have them available for you in color and in black and white. And then it says my problem's big, my reaction can be big. If my problem's tiny, my reaction should be tiny. So we're going to flip through the tiny pumpkin, and then it would say, if my problem's tiny, my reaction should be tiny. And it goes on, and then it talks about how they can solve the problem. So different ways they can solve the problem depending on the size of the pumpkin. Now I'm also going to show you a picture of what that looks like in action. But before I do that, here is the other component, and this is a seed sort. So you're going to print out the different pumpkins and then print out the different seeds, and the kids are going to read them and categorize them based on problem size. And then if you wanted to make it extra fun, you could have like the actual plastic jack-o'-lantern Halloween buckets labeled with different sizes, and the kids could drop the seeds into the actual bucket. So that could be a really fun way. Now, this is subjective, so the kids are going to do it, and then you're going to discuss it as they're doing it. So, for example, if they think missing the bus is a huge problem, you're going to discuss, like, well, why do you think it's a huge problem? So the photo I have here is a guide for what I deemed as the best answers, but again, it is subjective, so these can vary a little bit. So here are those big pumpkins you're going to print out. And then here are the actual seed scenarios. And then after you do the activity, there is a worksheet that they can use to reflect here. So they can talk about a time that their pumpkin was each size, what happened, how they reacted, and if their reaction matched their problem size. So I wanted to show you some pictures of what this looks like in action. So you can see the worksheet there. Here is the flip book bound together by a ring, and then here are those pumpkins that you're going to categorize the seeds. So here's a different shot. There's the worksheet. So what happened? I spilled my juice at lunch, so I kicked and cried at the table. Did the size of your problem match the size of your reaction? No. And here, Grandpa won't wake up. That's pretty scary, so that would be a huge problem. Parents are getting a divorce or getting locked out of the house. Those are big problems. Here are the medium problems. So the kids are sorting the seeds. So the kids are sorting the seeds based on the scenario, laying them on top of the different pumpkins. Here's the flip book. So as you can see, they're just going to flip through the different ones. So it would start in order from tiny to huge. And I'll show you a little video. To see how can I solve the problem. That's all still referring to the tiny one, and then it moves on to small. And there's a picture of the flip book again. So hopefully that's helpful in giving you a visual. I know sometimes it's hard when you're just looking at the PDF. It's hard to imagine what it would look like in real life. And now I'm going to show you the boom cards. So this is the digital version that you can play with kiddos. I love boom cards. All you need is the link. You can play. You don't have to have a special app or anything. So I'll walk you through a few of these. So at first it's just kind of a explanation of the different problem sizes and reactions. If your problem's tiny, your reaction should be tiny, and then how you can solve a tiny problem. There's also an audio component, so if you click there, you can hear me reading these. So that's always helpful for students who need a little more support with reading. So you'll go through these. I'll go through those quickly because they're all pretty similar. So that's the explanation, but now they're going to put what they learned into action. So they're going to choose the right pumpkin to match the problem size. So if their pencil breaks, maybe they think that's a big problem. Well, they'll see that's incorrect, and then they'll later see that tiny is a better choice. So they can go through these. They're picking at the pumpkins to match the problem size. Now, if you're working with the student, or if you're doing this like on the board in a class or with a small group, you can talk about it. You know, they don't have to go through these quickly, but rather say like, why do you think that's a medium problem? Have you ever had a similar problem? Get them to share examples and to think about the real life applications. Now, this is kind of the inverse. It says the problem size, and we're trying to pick the answer that matches the problem size. So if you see your friend being hurt, that could be pretty huge. If there's an earthquake, that's definitely not small, right? So they're going through again and picking the correct scenarios. And then there's a portion here for them to select the solution that's best for the problem. So if their classmate hits them, is it better to ignore it or ask an adult for help? Ask an adult for help. So those all focus on selecting the correct solution. And then here is that same worksheet that you saw earlier, but this time it is digital, so they can type, I broke my pencil, things like that. They can type in these boxes and then click that submit button. All right, and then it will say that they now know how to match the size of their reaction to the size of their problem. So those are the Fun Boom cards. I hope you love the seasonal activity as much as I do, and that your kiddos are more equipped to understand the size of their problems.